we'd like to sincerely thank our Patreon supporters. Hey, what's going on, everyone? I am in the shop, and we're finally about to start this project. And when I say finally, I think I have a 3-week deadline to get, well, at least this surf ski and that green surf ski. And if I'm doing the two of them, I might as well get my surf ski done at the same time. And when I say converting, and the work I'm actually doing is, you remember that this surf ski is meant to be sat in. All this rope is in the way, it's part of the sling. It's meant to be sat in, the rudder controlled with your feet for steering, and paddled. It's basically a sealed sit-and-top kayak. But I'm converting it to pedal drive. So I have to remove all this good stuff, this baler that empties the water from inside your cockpit. Not even sure how it works because I don't need to. Oh, there's a lock on it. Yeah, so it drains the water out. All the foot pedals, their tracks, the bungees, these lines, I have to grind that off. And then I have to cut a hole in the backside of this seat, work those lines. They're epoxied all up underneath this gunnel, and I need to pull the lines free to about here. Reroute them out, probably right about here. And then put steering boards in here for the hand-controlled steering. Then I have to make a custom backrest for the person. Yeah, there'll be a floor in here. Actually, I should say that. A floor with a drive well for the Hobie drive system, which we'll get into later. And I have explained, I think, in one past video. I know this isn't reptile content, but this is part of Wolf's World. I'm gonna do some of this demo work, and I'll show you when it's done. All right, I've got this one pretty prepped. This will have to come out for the steering, but all the foot pedals are out, the bungees are out of the way. The next step is going to be to get a rough cut and cut this out there, just around that. Probably cut this whole little anchor point out. We'll no longer use that. But I've got to strip all that same stuff out of those two boats, so I'm gonna do that next, lower them one at a time and get that done. And I'll probably fire up the multi-tool and do all those cuts. All right, I worked my way all the way down to the green one. Of course, it doesn't look green from the top, but it is green on the bottom. Got everything stripped out of it. So the next step is to start cutting. Fun. All right, guys, we are back at the surf skis. My mom is working hard at cutting the tar paper. She climbed the ladder the other day, so I had to not work on the surf skis and start. She was demoing the rest of the Hardy board up there, so I ended up having to hang, you know, some more of the plywood sheets and stuff. So I think we're 3 sheets away from finishing this. She's now cutting the tar paper so we can get at least the legs all tarred in. And I just need to, I guess later this week, get those 3 sheets, get them up there and dry in the whole front of this shop. But now I'm starting to do exactly what I said I didn't want to do, and that's do fiberglass work in this shop that I want to be my clean shop, but is what it is. So what I'm going to do is take one of those vibrating multi-tools, cut along this line super carefully. This boat, there's a little bit more meat here. Once we get to the skinny boat, which could be like a knife edge there, I have to like so carefully at such a soft angle cut that. So we'll cut all this material out all along there, like a 1/2 inch below that ledge. And then it's gonna be glued on this bottom. So I'm gonna have to cut it like right here, break it out, and then probably carry this onto the racks out in into the shade out there where I have more wind blowing, and finish cutting that. I also have to cut this square out. I think the square is a little bit smaller from the bottom, but I need this whole piece out. So we'll grind and cut and get that square out. And obviously we'll get this decal out. And then I've got to do that on all 3 boats. I'm so crunched for time on this and other projects. I think we have 3 weeks, start to finish, to have this project done. And my buddy Brandon has to do the gel coat paint on all my work in here. So like I always say, nothing to it but to do it. I'll get them all cut out and then We're back. And I look like Frosty the Snowman. Don't worry, I was wearing a dust mask. This is only the first surf ski done. The drain is out. The area for me to get these steering lines rerouted to this side is accessible now for me. All that stuff is gutted out the inside of the boat. I wish I could show you guys how stinking light this material is. It's like a honeycomb type material with a layer of finished glass on the inside, but the color is kind of tricked because this boat is gel coated blue and then painted white over it. But what looks green is actually a layer of Kevlar, which is yellow. I think you could see it at some points that it's yellow. Kevlar, and then a layer of carbon fiber. And that's what makes these boats so strong, but so stinking light. I think this boat's like 26 pounds, 21-foot long boat. It's pretty wild. So that's one strip down. We had a whole bunch of emergencies today. Animal stuff and shipping. And thank God Ship Your Reptiles is so good. They're handling it, everything for me. So, and my mom's been plugging away on the outside of the shop. She's got all the tar paper cut, so the legs of the shop are already done. Thanks, Mom. You're welcome. She's kicking butt out here. I'm gonna continue working on the other boats, and we're trying to get this project done and out of the way. I think I need to go pick up some fiberglass supplies tomorrow, and then we're gonna start using, I'll show you real quick. If I didn't show it already, Tom cut it out if I already did. But this is the mold for the drive well. So I actually, you know, this is what the drive system sits in the boat. And this is my mold. I have to wax this a couple times and set this over. I used to have a big piece of mirror, which was awesome. I think I'm gonna try and use wax paper or something like that this time. And I need to lay fiberglass pieces of wood in there so the screws for the clips go into. Like, this thing has to be so structurally strong, and I'll show you later how we set it in the boat and break it loose from the mold, but that's what we're gonna be working on once we strip all these boats down. All right, guys, we'll be back. All right, guys, this is the third and final boat. I have my access hole right here. There's a foam backrest that will cover that later when it's repaired, but that's gonna give me access to these steering lines that run through the boat. I'll be able to reach my arm up in there, and it's held together by a material called Cavasil, which is ground up tiny fibers of fiberglass with the epoxy resin, and it makes like a peanut butter paste that you can use to adhere stuff. So we'll actually use that later in this project, and I'll show you. But I'll be able to access those lines, and there's a hole right here where this line will cross through that hole. Hopefully you can see, and they'll both come out this side. Both of these lines should pop out of this boat right about here. So I'll have to do that, and then there'll be a 1/4-inch piece of Luan that will be cut to the floor, sitting on this ledge. Now, one of the boats doesn't have this ledge, so we'll go over that later. And then the drive well that penetrates the hull. You'll get to see all those steps. But they're all stripped out. One of the first steps is doing the molds on the drive wells, as well as the initial patch where the drain was for this boat. So we'll clean any of the plastic residue out of that, put a piece of fiberglass over it, and then we'll actually use the Cavasil on the other side to get it smooth to the hull. And before we start fiberglassing on the surf ski, we also need to tape off all the areas. That way you don't walk up to the surf ski with a hot bucket of, and I say hot because the epoxy resin heats up and the more it heats up, the closer it's getting to cure. So I'll say hot. So once it's thoroughly mixed, you've only got a set amount of time to work with it. You don't want it dripping on this boat and putting a permanent drip of epoxy resin over this surface. We don't need to touch this, paint this, or do anything. So we'll tape it all off and keep it pristine. Yeah, like I said, next step is the drive wells. We may do a time lapse when I fiberglass that. We'll see, because I don't want to touch the camera when I have that stuff on my hands, but that's next. All right, guys, it's a Sunday morning. Actually, I say morning, but it's probably close to lunchtime. But I got my glass table all set up with the different types of fiberglass. We've got a very thick double weave. It's chopped on one side, woven, very thick woven. That one will create, it's only 4 inches up, some structural strength. Then we have, this is one that takes very good contours. It's, I forget what they call it, like a diagonal weave or something like that. It takes the shapes, but I have all the relief cuts and stuff done on the different pieces that go on top of here. Let's see, like this piece goes on there. I have my corners so I can line them up, and all those flaps fold down. And then, and I'm showing you all this because I'm not gonna film the process, because if for some reason I gotta turn the camera off, I can't do that with wet epoxy on my hands. Just not going to. If I had someone to film, it would be different. Then that piece, yeah, so basically I have all my different cuts and stuff all done. And then all of this chopped glass or matte, and then I fluff it out, stretch it out, and then that stuff will be able to create strength in areas and tie those basic flat sheets, like create more strength around the nose cone and stuff like that. And you guys will see when it's done. And then I'm able to cut it all level because there'll be plenty sticking up. The table has packing tape on it, and the table is waxed. So it's gonna slide around very easy, but it'll release from the table. Epoxy sticks to everything. So when we get this done, I'm gonna show you guys the mold when it's done, or I'm sorry, the drive well when it's released from the mold, and then show you the next step on the boat. I have to do this for 3 days in a row, and almost all of that, minus these matte pieces fluffed out, are already pre-cut for the other wells. Did I show you guys the piece of wood? I believe I did. So I have everything ready. I'll show you it done, and we'll get on to the next step. All right, guys. My eyes are watering like crazy, and I'm sneezing. I had the fiberglass dust on my eyes, and I had rinsed off my face earlier, but then I wiped them. Oh, they're so aggravated right now. But instead of getting all 3 boats done by the deadline moved up, and I'm only gonna get the 2 for the clients done. My boat's gonna have to wait. There's just too much going on. But we've now gotten the steering lines broke free. So I ground that down with a grinder, and then took that vibrating multi-tool. It just vibrates that blade, and carefully plunged it in there to cut the steering line. Then I measured, drilled my holes, rerouted them, and then they have to cross to work properly with my steering, so you gotta pay attention to that, and then the lines will come together. So now I'm ready to close up my access hole. It's all been sanded around, sanded on the top of that, and I set these screws in there so I have everything flush. So, and then it was all wiped down with acetone. Now we have these holes to fill where the old drains, sorry, I get my camera actually pointing at it. So that has been wiped down with acetone, and we have a layer of glass just to start. We've also measured and marked for our drive wells where they're gonna penetrate the hull. I guess the last video I was about to do the first drive well. Maybe I'll stop and show those to you. So we had that mold out there's all 3 drive wells done. So now I have these fiberglass bits. They're nice and smooth inside, rough on the outside, and they will penetrate the hull of that boat where I just showed you that line. I also have, I don't want to set these in because they're covered in sawdust. These are at the actual floors of the boats that will go, I'll carefully set it there. So those are cut. So I still have to mark for once the drive well's in the hull, mark for that, cut that out, adhere that down there, and then it screws on the rear. Can't really show you with the camera, but it dips down a little bit. 2 little screws hold it in place, gets cabestoled and glassed in, and that's kind of where we're at. So the 2 boats are ready for the backrests and those pieces to be done, and then the next step will be to cut the hole in the boat. I can also today glass and seal the back side of these, so I know which client, which boat this is for. I need to put a layer of fiberglass on the back side of this one and the back side of this one to seal them, because wood cannot get wet or it's going to absorb the water. You know, this isn't a marine wood, so it has to be sealed properly for it to last. These boats are not supposed to have any water in them, but you know, some water can sneak and find its way in if a rudder or something gets loose, and you don't want, well, I don't want my work ever coming apart or starting to hold weight or anything like that. So it's sealed properly, the edges are sealed, and then obviously the top side, I'm going to show you how we form that to the boat and make it look really nice. So I'm going to get that stuff done tonight, and then I'll show you the next step again. All right, guys, this is where we're at now. I have, well, this is my buddy John's boat. The floor, which I said I was going to cut out of a piece of Luan, it's already fiberglassed on the backside and sealed around the edge. I will reseal it before I attach the floor down. Before I do the floor, I'll show you, there's another piece for the steering that I have to do, and it's different in different boats. But these are the steering lines we had moved. I needed to put this through the hull. I had to put more fiberglass bracing inside of there to make that stronger, and then that's bolted in there. But this plate will sit here with some more spaces against that handle and be bolted in. You'll see it when it's done, but that will sit there just like that. But this part needed to be done first. These will actually get bolted through this handle on this model boat. A lot of boats won't have that, and then there'll be actually 3 points of attachment. But let's set this aside. So I have all this fiberglass here. This gets shredded a little bit, and oh well, let's go right past that and look at the drive well. You guys remember me making these in the mold. This is now cabestilled into the mold. And what is that? That's like a fiberglass powder mixed in with the epoxy, and you mix it to the thickness of peanut butter and you put it in there. There's that hole in the hull is now patched from this side. We still have to fill it from the other side. So the next step is to shred the edges of this glass and fiberglass this into the hull. Shred these pieces, and 4 of these pieces are going to get shoved in underneath that part right there. Shove them in, and then 4 from the front side and shove them in. Then all these tabs will grab the hull, so this will be glassed into the hull. And once that dries, then comes the plywood that we'll do in the next step. So this boat is ready. I believe I said in another video, because of the time frame and everything else that I'm doing, my boat is going to have to wait. I will do it later. And this is a woman, Beth's boat, that we're working on. So her boat is the same exact model as this other Falcon here, and everything is ready. There's where we did the steering lines. I'll have to sand that down in another step, and I'll show you finished glass goes over that. Once that's sanded, finished glass over that, and you'll see once we have the floor in. But it's getting there. Getting there. Trying to meet a deadline. It's the morning now, and I have yesterday's Cavasil where I stitched it in dry. So that's now hard as a rock and has the cove of that spatula that I made. So now, today, I need to go to the edge right about there and go all the way around with the Cavasil, all the way to right about there, right about where it wants to sag down. Maybe that's the stop right there. So I need to do that on both boats, and that's it for today's step. I just need to get it attached. So this one the same, just go all the way around. And then the next step is to drill and tap and recess 2 screws to hold that down right there. Now you can see where the board wants to do that. Once that's screwed down, I can get a loose piece of fiberglass to cover that. And then I have to feather my Cavasil over that. So I'll do that on both boats. It's just tiny step after tiny step. And that's just the way it works. But it's good because I can do a step and then get to work on the animal stuff. So that's what I'm gonna do. Knock this out and get to work on the animals. Okay, next day again. And now you can see that soft radius curve that's there. It's a little bumpy. My Cavasil was a little chunky, but that all gets sanded smooth. The next step is to, well, I need to get rid of this hole here. So what I need to do is drill and then recess the hole and put 2 stainless steel screws right there to hold this down so that board will flex down there. And once that's held in place, then I can do the sheet of fiberglass, a small little patch to cover that. And then the next step, probably tonight, I can probably Cavasil first coat around that. Then it will all get sanded. This, the back of the bucket, and all of that. And then I will do another touch up of Cavasil tomorrow on both surf skis. And then we'll be able to start laying the fiberglass in here. Look, the router got a little wonky there, but the fiberglass will hide all that. And we'll be able to drop the fiberglass into this well and start making it all one. So we're getting there. So I also need to measure for the aluminum to build the backrests and start getting a little closer with the steering. That I have to install. Someone else is gonna finish the gel coat, my buddy Brandon, in the bucket afterwards. So we just need to get these 2 done, raw fiberglass. Oh, and one very important step is actually fitting the drive systems in there. I'll show you. This is the drive system my buddy Brandon races with. And it's not gonna fit in this drive well yet. The clips I would set in there, let's see. So it's tight in the front. So I need to sit there with the Dremel and work that opening. And so I'm gonna get it to fit. And then when I drop this fiberglass in, it's gonna run epoxy resin down there, and I'm gonna have to fit it a second time to get it perfect. The rear is sitting in there good, but I could see where it's rubbing in a couple spots. You want it to clearance, you want it to be comfortable. You don't want it to chafe the paint off and stuff like that. So that was gonna require just a little work to get it perfect. But once we do on both boats, we'll be good. Pretty exciting though. I mean, you can already see, well, it's not all the way down, so you can't get the full motion, but pretty close to a pedal surf ski. All right, we are getting close, very close. Now the floor is attached to the drive well. This is only 1 coat. Where the fiberglass overlaps, I would say it's 90% hard and strong. But where it's only 1 layer, I don't know if you guys could see, but my finger with the permanent marker on it can depress it just slightly. So I go around with these strips just to build up the thickness right on that first. And oh, I don't know if you guys can see, remember the sheets of fiberglass we put there, all sanded out, perfectly smooth. The back of the seat, nice and smooth now. You can still see where the patch is, but when this is primed and the thick primer is sanded, then it's all ready for the paint. I'll show you guys this. This is the finished fiberglass sitting on the floor. It has the little reliefs cut in it, so this fiberglass will drop right in. And then this will be final sanded. And there's another piece that goes right there that overlaps that one and covers up our patch. And this is gonna make all that cove really nice and smooth, all that in that corner. If there is anything when we're done that I don't like, I can always go back with a little Cavasil to finish it. Or my buddy Brandon may use something a little thinner. I'll definitely discuss with him. But I'm gonna mix up that epoxy and get this finished glass done. Down to the wire. I think I have 2 more days to my deadline. I just got the signature black diamond that I always do on the bottom of my boats, showing where the drive well is. And this is the top side of Beth's boat. Seats all sanded out and smooth. All this stuff is good and smooth, and if this wasn't smooth fiberglass, you know I wouldn't be rubbing my hands on it like this. These are the clips that accept the drive system. I've already checked both boats out. Both boats have their clips. And if I can do this without touching that diamond, because I did just put the paint on it. Clips are done in this boat. So now I'm working on the steering plates, which are these starboard pads that get bolted to the boats right there. They have, just like there's a spacer on the rear, there's another spacer or 2 that sit on that bar. I'm touching it with my thumb there. So need to get those bolted on and then cut this to length and put a new crossbar on it, and I'll show you when it's done. And I own a welder. I think I've mentioned this in past videos. I've always owned welders and I've done all sorts of fabrication work, but I get everything fit together, I tack it, and I let a professional weld it. I know it's silly. It's just a skill that I've never grasped well. So I'll take it to somebody to weld that stainless. I think I need to check on the transfer case for the Jeep with Rob anyway, and he does that. And I'll get that done. And then the backrests. I believe tomorrow night I have to take it to Brandon's house for him to paint the wells. This is not white, it's actually a light gray, even though it probably looks white on film. I think you can see the difference. That the F in Falcon, that's white, and that's that light gray. Beth's boat is more important. I think I have a little more time on John's because Brandon said he's not gonna make, I mean, as late as I'm giving him the boats, he can't get both boats done for when Beth's supposed to pick them up. So I'll just get the one done, and I think John will be here a couple weeks later to get his. So Kagan's feeding the animals for me while I'm trying to get this done for a deadline. And I'm done sanding fiberglass. I'm ready to get back to the fun stuff. Okay, I have the steering mounted and working on this boat now. And I can show you the bottom. This one is just mocked up. I'm not gonna use this handle, but for the purpose of mocking it up and showing you, the handle locks in place with that little pin. If you guys could see it. So it's gonna turn this crossbar that's pulling the rudder lines. And that's just how that stainless is welded in like that. So that's good to go. And now I'm working on the backrests. So I'm just cutting all my aluminum pieces, and I'll get that done. And tomorrow, we're gonna finish this video. I believe Beth's boat is, the bucket will be painted. We're gonna finish the steering on her boat and the backrest, and we're done. Oh, you don't wanna go back to that? What? There was a video of Dawson beating up his sister over here.
Hi!
He was trying to. So we're at Brandon's house. There's Brandon. You guys remember Brandon? Kagan's here with me. We went to dinner with my parents, and because Brandon had plans with his children this afternoon, so we ended up coming over here at night to finish up the boat. But Brandon has, you guys remember the last shot, this was all raw fiberglass in here. So he has sprayed, is it an automotive paint?
Yeah.
Automotive paint and 2 coats of clear. 2 coats of clear. He still says he still has a little bit more he wants to buff out inside here. To me, it looks amazing, but I'm sure in the daylight you could probably see a little bit. That's why he wants to buff it out a little more. Steering is done on this boat. The backrest, the cushions, it's a done deal. I think once he's done buffing that, there's a little bungee that goes right there. That's what those 2 holes are. It's a done deal. A long time, a long process to get these boats converted. But if someone has a shoulder issue, pains in their hands, lower back issues and stuff like that, this is an alternative to still getting on the water and doing what you love. Speaking of water, Kagan just bought a paddleboard the other day, so she's gonna start getting on the water with me and going to some of the race days, which is pretty cool. That's all for this one, guys. Until next time. Thanks for watching, everyone. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. See you soon.